Welcome to today's webinar, Stand Out in Your Job Search and Networking Efforts, How to Create a Career One Sheet. This webinar is sponsored by the Emory Alumni Association. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sarah Rawls, Director of Alumni Career Services, and I'm thrilled to be here today with Hallie Crawford, Certified Career Coach and founder of HallieCrawford.com. For those of you who don't know Hallie, she is one of our partner coaches at the Alumni Association. As Emory alumni from any school within the university, you have access to 5 of our partner career and leadership coaches to help you in your job search, promotion, management issues, whatever it is. They will offer one complimentary session and then a special reduced rate for you for the subsequent session. So it's a really great offering, but in between those coaching sessions, Hallie comes in and presents webinars. So we're really glad to have her here today to discuss a new subject. And you may have seen her at one of her in-person workshops at the Alumni House. And if you are looking for more in-person advice or networking events, we have many offerings coming up. So I will email you about those after this webinar, along with a link to the recording of today's session, which will be housed on the Emory University YouTube channel, where we have a career webinars playlist with over 80 archived webinars. So if you need to jump off at any point, know that that is coming. But if you stay on till the end, we will be doing a Q&A with Hallie. So please submit your questions as you think of them so that we can maximize our time with her at the end. And if you visit the handout section of the GoToWebinar control panel, you will see that you have the option to download Hallie's guide to go along with today's conversation. So let me know if you do not find that, and I'll email it to you. So a bit more about our presenter. Hallie Crawford is a certified career coach and national career expert based in Atlanta. Her company, HallieCrawford.com, and team of coaches have helped thousands of people worldwide identify and transition into their dream career. Hallie is regularly featured as a career expert in the media, including Forbes.com, The Wall Street Journal, CNN, AJC, and Fox Business News. Hallie, again, is a partner with the Alumni Association, and I will share the link afterwards in case you'd like to schedule an appointment with Hallie or one of our other career coaches. So, Hallie, thank you for being here today. I'll now turn it over to you.
Thanks, Sarah. That was perfect. Wonderful. Thank you, everyone, also for being here today. We really appreciate your time, especially on your lunch hour. So we will make this valuable and helpful to you. So we are here to talk about standing out in your job search and in your networking efforts as well, everyone. So as you can imagine, this topic is largely geared towards people who are in job search mode, but this is also helpful for just establishing and kind of promoting your brand in your current industry and in your current role as well. So keep that in mind. And we are going to be focusing today on how to create what we call a career one sheet. And you will see some examples and samples kind of as we go here today. Okay. So the first thing I wanted you to know is that I totally get that standing out can be challenging. I am actually more introverted than extroverted. And so sometimes for me, networking can be tough. I'll admit it, it's not always my favorite thing to do either. And I understand too that standing out in today's market, because it's or it can be a tough job market, and it's challenging with the global economy as well, that people need to find more and more ways to stand out in their job search, okay? And I know this firsthand as well for me as a business owner, because the competition for career coaches, there's more and more of us out there. When I started my business over 17 years ago, I know I sound like I'm 12, I'm actually 45, so it's been a long time. But when I started my business a long time ago, people didn't really know about coaching as much less career coaching. And I had to explain it to them every time. And these days, people tend to have a sense of it, or at least, have heard of it before. And there's a lot more coaches out there. So competition is definitely steeper. So I want you to know that I get this, I understand it. And these are principles, the ones that I'm going to share with you today are principles and tools that we use with and recommend to our existing clients. Okay, so here's our agenda. We are going to talk today about what a career one sheet is and what it isn't, also to give you some tips at the very beginning on, how to get started with one. We're going to also talk about the importance of having one. Why is this helpful in your job search as well as networking? I'm going to go over 3 steps clarify, create, and communicate, the way that you need to or can get started with creating this, okay? And then we're going to end with how to make this real. I'm going to give you some examples. You can email me for some of the examples that I'm going to show you today so that you have them in your inbox and can download them directly, okay? And I want you all to walk away from this today with at least one action step that you will do to, forward momentum or movement on this that you will do in the next couple of weeks. Because I don't know about you, but this happens to me often, I'll admit it, where I attend a workshop or a webinar or something like this, and life just gets busy. I have all these high hopes for, taking action, and life just gets busy. Things get in the way. So I want you to come up with something concrete at the end, as well as asking questions. If any of you, by the way, would like a copy of this presentation, I will send it to you as a PDF. Just email me at admin@halliecrawford.com so that you don't feel like you have to be frantically taking notes the whole time. I'm happy to do that for you. Just send me an email, okay? So that's what we're going to talk about. So the first piece is a career one sheet, what it is. Basically, a career one sheet can be like a one-page document in Word, or as a PDF would be ideal, actually, so that the margins don't get goofed up if you send it to people, okay, or when you do. It could also be like a short PowerPoint deck, though, as well, or a portfolio of your work, especially if you're like, in a creative field like graphic design or interior design or something like that. Okay. So it's something kind of short, sweet, simple, easy to read and understand that is in addition to your resume and your cover letter. It doesn't take the place of it, it's in addition to those things. But the one sheet showcases your expertise. And in some cases, it'll showcase like your soft skills. And you'll see what I mean in just a moment here as we talk more about this. So keep in mind, everyone, it's something else in addition to your resume and cover letter that can help you stand out from the crowd and show that you're unique in your job search and you've got these additional, soft skills or additional experience, and describe that a little bit more so than it would be on your resume. Okay? The other thing, let's take a look at this slide here, is what a career one sheet is not. It's not just a repeat of your resume. That would be a total waste of time, right? And it's also not a really long-winded document that doesn't have like a target audience and purpose for it, that it's not thought through and doesn't have targeted information that would be useful to an employer. And Sarah, if you could go ahead and start pulling up this first poll, that would be great. So a one sheet is not just something that you slap together, everybody, and, oh, I just need to do this to stand out. It needs to have thought put behind it and very clear to employers why it's useful to them for that particular job. So the thing with the one sheet is, and then we'll go ahead and do the poll, is that just like your resume, you shouldn't have to adjust it too much, because you should just be applying for, certain jobs. They should be all kind of related, right? You just need to tweak it, but you would need to tweak your one sheet every time, or at least double check it to ensure that it's tailored to the specific job that you're applying for. So it would be the same as your resume in that case, okay? So I'm curious, just real quickly here, how many people on the call have created a one sheet or something similar to this for their job search, whether it's a video or something else?
So we have had 100% of people already voted, and 89% said no, and 11% said maybe. But
Okay,
they're
cool.
completely short. So most people have not done this. So thank you all for giving your feedback.
Yes, thank you. And I love like doing the polls early like that. It gives everybody time to answer too. It's efficient. That's great. Okay, good. So I'm glad you all are here. And if you're not sure, if you've done something like this before, you'll see the examples. Like we said, I'll show you kind of, how we see it, and you'll be more clear on, what you need to do to change yours if that's the case. Okay. So let's take a look at why this is important. Why is creating a one sheet or something similar to this an important thing for your job search? Okay. So here's the deal. Reason number one is, and I just love this tug of war. I think this is hysterical. There's steep competition for jobs. There's at least 3 people, give or take, for each job opening. Okay, so statistics, when you look out there on Glassdoor or on other places that conduct these surveys about what the competition is for jobs, it's still pretty high. Okay, so because of that steep competition, we need to help you figure out how to stand out in your search and being effective doing that. Now, here's the thing: you have to keep in mind that something like a one sheet, or what we're talking about today, is more effective in a lot of ways. For example, we don't want to do hokey things like printing your resume on colored paper. You don't want to be using like strange fonts, or, calling an employer too often. Those are frowned upon. So we need to do and have kind of professional strategies to get your foot in the door. Okay. And the problem is that job seekers can feel really desperate because of the competition. They don't know what else to do. And you add to the mix the increase in the use of social media and figuring out how to separate yourself from the competition. That can just flat out seem overwhelming, and you don't know exactly what to do and how to handle it correctly. So that's reason number one why this is important. The second reason is that the same goes for people who are still employed and are looking to get a promotion. One reason people don't get promotions and move up in their organization is because they're not visible enough at their company or in their field. So having some kind of one sheet like this can help you with even, getting a promotion or establishing your brand in your field or your industry as well, like we talked about at the beginning. Okay. And reason number three is, like we talked about just a second ago, it will help you. Having something like this will help you promote your brand, standing out from the crowd. But also, if you look at the second piece here, it will help position you as an expert in some area and even in a specific niche or region. So, one of the examples that I'll reference in a few minutes here is a client that worked with us, and he was a specialist in the economy for South American countries because he worked at a telecom organization, and that was his area of expertise for business development. He wanted to get into renewable energy instead, but he positioned himself as an expert still, even if he didn't know about renewable energy yet, positioned himself as, I understand the economy and the business opportunities in South American countries. Okay. So this can help you, like, not just stand out from the crowd, but position you really effectively as an expert in some area. And finally here, and Sarah, if you can pull up the second poll, that'd be great. Finally here, it's a memorable takeaway that you can leave with someone, after an interview or during the course of the interview. You hand it to them, and it's a leave behind during an interview, but also in a networking event. Even if you don't bring it with you, it's something you can email afterwards. Okay. So this second poll, everybody, curious how many of you feel like you struggle with promoting your brand. And it's okay if you say yes. I have felt this way too. It's not the easiest thing sometimes.
Yeah, no, okay. Almost everyone's voted. All right. Okay, we got a little bit of diversity here. So 94% of people said yes, they struggle. I think one or two people said no, they do not struggle. So wow, that's I was not expecting it to be so weighted. So we'll have to follow this up with a personal branding webinar.
Yes. Okay. I will make a note of that, and we'll do that in a month or so. Perfect. So promoting your brand, remember, you're not alone. Like we just said, you're not alone in this. It can be hard to do, and this can help you with that piece of it as well. Okay. So let's talk about the 3 steps to create a one sheet or something similar to this. Okay. So the first step you need to take is to clarify what's the purpose for the document, all of that. We'll talk about that more in just a moment. The second step is to create it, actually. And then the third step is to communicate it. Duh, right? So it's not going to do any good if it just sits on your computer, as we know. But I get it. People procrastinate. We forget to do this stuff. I'm always having to remind my clients, like, remember when you meet with someone, ask them and invite them to connect with you on LinkedIn. I mean, it's hard. When you're in job search mode, especially, there's so many moving parts and pieces. Like we said a minute ago with social media, it's hard to remember every single step. So it is helpful, by the way, to have like a checklist so that you remember, okay, I need to send them these 3 things. So first of all, in terms of the clarifying, okay, so what you want to do in your first step is like clarify the purpose for the document that you're creating. what's the why here? What is your goal? Is it to get a promotion? Is it to establish your brand? Is it to, obtain this certain type of job in this industry? Whatever it is, you need to understand clearly what your goal is, obviously, because that's going to affect and impact what you say and how you say it during the course of the document. You then need to say, if you take a look at the slide here, who you're trying to communicate with. Is it potential employers? Is it, other people in your industry, in your field, if you want to position yourself as an expert, like we said? Or is it just kind of in general networking context? So who's your target audience? And think about also, by the way, when you're creating this, especially if it's like for an employer and applying for jobs, who you're talking to, not just, oh, it's an employer, but like, what's their position? And what is their background? And do you need to use, would it be better to use and okay to use a lot of jargon, in the one sheet, or is that a bad idea? So go deeper with the who, everyone, and think about what kind of messaging would they most relate to? Are they a CEO or, a director level or, middle manager, whatever it is, but what's their background as well that they would resonate with, okay? This will enable you to develop the correct content, like we said, but also the delivery method and how to communicate it. So, for example, like I said a moment ago, you're probably not going to walk around, or you probably won't, a networking event with your one sheet, right? It's something that you can email them to afterwards. But if you're going on an interview, I highly recommend having a copy of it as well as your resume and cover letter to hand over to them. By the way, just kind of as a side note, and then we'll keep talking. Actually, I'm going to go to this next slide here because we're going to keep talking about clarifying. One of the things we suggest people do to help them stand out during the course of an interview, this is more after you've landed the interview, but is go in with a 30, 60, 90-day plan about what you would do if you got the job. This works wonders with employers. It's very impressive. So as much as you possibly can, I've actually had clients who are higher up, like a CEO level, for example, they will create a PowerPoint deck of this is what I would do getting started. Even if you're not at that level, there is nothing wrong with a quick PowerPoint deck, even if it's only like 2 or 3 slides of these are the first steps I would take, my goals and my plan, that you can leave as a leave behind as well. Another way that can help you stand out during the course of the interview, though, a little bit different from this, okay? So here's the deal. Consider the following in terms of the who, why, and the what. So who's your target audience? Prospective employer, boss, peers, etc. Take a look at why, what your goal is. Is it branding? Is it job search? Or is it changing to a new industry? So if you take a look at this one here, number 2, everybody, changing to a new industry, one of the things that you want to do is show that you understand at least somewhat, if you haven't been in that industry before, like that you understand what's going on, okay? So the example that I gave you all a few minutes ago about the man moving from telecom into renewable energy, he did kind of a short PowerPoint on the State of the Union of renewable energy in South America, what the opportunities were and what the challenges were. So in particular, and this actually honestly can go for any industry, okay, even if you're staying in the same one. However, especially for those of you that might be changing over, this is especially helpful. Identify and solve or talk about how to solve an industry problem, or also you could add to this what some of the opportunities are there. And it will show that you have some knowledge of it so that they'll be more likely to hire you, okay? And then finally, number 3 here on the slide, what type of job is it that you're going for? And this is more for, job search, but a little bit for promotion as well, okay? Is it a leadership position? And because of that, like if you're going to be in a leadership position or a manager of 10 new people, you can write out for them what your leadership style is and management philosophy, let's say, because that would help them get to better know you, okay? If, for example, it's graphic design, it could be your design philosophy, okay? So there's different ways to approach this. And you can combine the different ideas that I'm going to show you today into one document. There's nothing wrong with that. However, make sure it's not too long, like we said. It's better if it's like 1 or 2 pages and that's it. You don't want it to be too intensive, okay? The third step in terms of clarifying, okay, is to then think about, okay, what do I want to include? And this is kind of like, can be like a brain dump, right? You don't want to start out trying to edit it and make it all perfect and pretty right out of the box, because that will kind of stunt your creative thinking, if you will. So the things that you want to include in this one sheet is what you have to offer the employer, right? What results you've achieved in the past and the results that you feel you could achieve for them, what they are looking for in terms of skills, background, experience, software, technical skills, whatever it is they're looking for, okay? Review your resume and you can say to yourself, gosh, what's left out here? What would I add to the picture for an employer? So if you're the employer, put yourself in their shoes actually for a moment and say, what else would they want to know about me? Like, are they dealing with a challenge in their particular company that I've read about online, or that I know about from the news, or, that I know about from their press releases or whatever it is, or there's an opportunity there that you would like to address, because you're not going to put something like, I feel there's an opportunity for XYZ in your resume. That's not relevant for that. So you can put it in this one sheet, okay? It could be, as you see here on the slide, your philosophy of something. It could be additional soft skills that are not on your resume, that you have, this particular background. So soft skills, by the way, everyone, are more like your leadership ability, your ability to work within a team, your ability to be empathetic with prospective clients and how that helps you with sales. So obviously some of these soft skills are going to be on your resume, but you can think of some additional ones that could go on the one sheet as well. And any additional information on projects and accomplishments. So if there's any like big projects or accomplishments that you couldn't go into great detail on your resume just because it wouldn't make sense to do so, because that's more of like a summary, you can include additional information on specific projects or accomplishments that would be relevant to that job. Okay, so let me show you. This example here is something that this client allowed us, said it was okay to share with people. And what this client does is he has on his LinkedIn profile, this is his background, everything else. And you can't see it here actually on the slide, but a little bit further down, what he did, we had him do, is include a Dropbox, I should say, link in his summary at the very bottom, so that people would see this one sheet and could download it right away from his LinkedIn profile. Okay, so this is this person. And his goal was a new job with a retirement community, but as a CEO, okay? And so the example was his leadership philosophy. So he created a 2-page document, and this was his purpose, like that's how he felt about the job that he was applying for. Okay, and he was specifically looking for like Catholic or religious oriented retirement communities. That was his focus. And so the way he wrote this was more about being a servant leader, etc. He was writing in their language. Okay, so this is the beginnings of his one sheet. This is just one example, one way, kind of one thing that you can put out there talking about your leadership style or philosophy. Okay. If you guys would like a copy of the full one sheet, like I said, to give you something that you can download, feel free to email me at Hallie@HallieCrawford.com or admin@HallieCrawford.com. Either way is fine. And I can give you that example. He said that we could do that. We have his permission to do that, so that at least you can kind of see how it was laid out and how it was worded. Happy to provide that to you. Okay. So the second step here is to create it. So after you've figured out these first pieces, and clarified your target audience, what you want to say, everything else, the content can be any one of these things at the top here. It could be your career objective, because by the way, everyone, we prefer for people at the top of their resume to have a professional summary or summary of qualifications, not their career objective. I think the career objective belongs in your cover letter instead, because honestly, you're applying for their job. They kind of know what your career objective is, right? So it's better, the use of that space is better used on a resume for why I'm qualified for the job. But you could put more about your career objective in your one sheet. Again, other accomplishments or projects that you didn't have room to fully describe on your resume. And it could be some design examples, like we said too, or leadership philosophy, anything else, okay? The criteria here is it needs to be very easy for them to access or take away. So leaving it, behind as a a printed copy, accessing it from your LinkedIn or having a link from your resume or LinkedIn. We'll talk about that more in a moment, and communicating it. You want it to be like easy to read, have a lot of bulleted lists so it's easy for them to scan. In some cases, you want to keep it in layman's terms. In other cases, you want to use some of the industry lingo. We talked about that a moment ago. It's going to depend on who you're interviewing with and what's important in your industry. And we do recommend in some cases you can include a photo. This is really personal and it's going to be up to you. We know that from LinkedIn, it's critical to have a photo because people connect with people, not a piece of paper or just a LinkedIn profile, right? So we always want people to have a photo on their LinkedIn. You do not want to put a photo on your resume. You don't want to have it on your cover letter because that's just a no-no, at least for our culture. Other cultures in other countries, they prefer to have that. But on your career one sheet, it is a nice idea, I think, to include a photo because it will help them connect with you. Again, that's going to be up to you, and don't put something on there that looks bad. If you don't have anything good, either don't include it or get a new one, okay? But we do like you to have that. In terms of the format and creating it, we suggest that it's a PDF document. If you do create something in Word originally, or even honestly, everybody in PowerPoint, put it into a PDF document because if they open it up, the employer or whoever else, if they open it up in a different version of Word or PowerPoint, the margins are going to get goofy and it's going to look bad. So it's always better to translate it into PDF. There are free PDF converters, by the way, all over the internet. If you just type in free PDF converter, you're able to, translate documents into PDF pretty easily. They usually don't let you do like 10 at a time because they want a paying subscription for that. But just please know that you don't have to go buy, Acrobat or Adobe Acrobat Reader or whatever it is in order to do this, okay? Another format could be video. This one I think is, I don't want to say touchy, but it's going to be based on your personal preference and style and industry as well. In some industries, videos are helpful and useful. Remember, it needs to be very professional. You need to have a professional background, have a script, keep it short and sweet. But if you feel like, gosh, your industry is more traditional and conservative, you don't need to do a video, okay? This is more for creative industries, in my opinion. If you don't feel like you come across well on camera, don't do it. This is not a must, it's just an idea, okay? In terms of criteria here at the bottom, like we said, it needs to be easy to access or take away, bulleted list, layman's terms, include the photo. So same thing here, you just want to keep this in mind like we talked about on the previous slide. And we are going to talk about in a second where are some places to make it easy for people to access, how you put it out there, if you will. Okay. Additional content that you can place on or inside your one sheet is include a link to your LinkedIn page, just like you would on your resume. Okay. You want to have that at the top. You can consider like a video introduction, and we said that on the other slide, but I wanted to show you here. Here are some video examples that if you're interested in thinking about this for your job search, click on that link. Like I said, if you want the presentation, just email me and I'll send it to you. But if you click on that link, you can check out some of the examples, okay? You can also link to a portfolio. For example, if you have a portfolio online, because again, you're a graphic designer or a marketing person, and you've got an online portfolio that's like a website, include that as well. Another thing that you can do and include on your one sheet is testimonials from clients or customers or your boss or teammates, okay? So this is another place that you can include testimonials. Sorry, I just had to drink a little bit of water. I'm talking fast and a lot, I know. One of the things about testimonials, everyone, is you could ask for new ones if you don't have any, but on your LinkedIn profile, you could lift those, when people give you recommendations, you can lift those from your LinkedIn profile and put them on your one sheet. I would recommend, by the way, if you do that, if one of them happens to be, for example, really long-winded, shorten it up a little bit so it's real powerful and punchy when someone reads it, okay? All right, so that is creating it. One of the things that the tools that you can use to consider in terms of what you might want to include content-wise on your one sheet, everybody, is our ideal career model. So this is the model that we use with all of our clients to help them define their career direction, but also help them create their strategic career plan and develop their brand. So if you take a look at this, everybody, these are some things that you could include, some of them, not all, but some of the things that you can include and at least think about when you're, considering the content for your one sheet. What your values are and your philosophy of things. That would go into fulfillment, like we talked about before. You can include some of your strengths that may not be highlighted enough on your resume, or you want to illustrate those more in some stories of accomplishments, okay? Any additional education that is not on your resume but may be helpful to them, experience as well. And I would say that with personality type too, that goes along with strengths, but personality type can be considered like soft skills as well. Like, I'm an extroverted leader with these capabilities. And because you're extroverted, you're able to connect with people well, or whatever it is you might want to say. In this case, for the one sheet, everyone, compensation and work environment are not relevant. You would just want to look at these kind of foundational pieces here. But looking at this for 5 minutes can give you ideas about what you may want to include that may be left off your resume. Joke? All right. And in terms of creating this, and this is the last one for step number 2, and then we'll go to step number 3, is you do want to make sure that you focus on your strengths and you've articulated those well. And the reason why the Strengths Finder book is on here, this is the assessment that we recommend our clients do. We like this one a lot because it's very accessible. The website is strengthsfinder.com, okay? And the test is like $20. If you just do your top 5 strengths, everyone, you are going to get a wealth of information. You don't have to pay the higher price for, all 30 of your strengths. I think it's helpful and useful to have that in some ways, but also kind of overwhelming. We tend to have our clients just focus on the top 5. But the reason why I like this assessment in particular, everybody, is because also it helps you identify and really understand what your strengths are if you're not sure what they are. But even more so on this second bullet point here on the slide, it gives you language you could use to articulate them effectively on your resume, your one sheet, and during the course of an interview. Because with each strength, there's multiple paragraphs that explain why this strength is useful, and you can use that to communicate things effectively. Okay, this one is so helpful, the Strengths Finder assessment. Okay. Step number 3, in terms of communicating, obviously you need to, put your one sheet out there, right? So here are the ways on this slide that we recommend you kind of, make it accessible to people, if you will. Link to it from your resume. You can do this easily, either from Google Drive or from Dropbox. I tend to like Dropbox personally. You can get a free account with them. And sometimes with Google Drive, if you download it to Word, the format gets screwed up too. It gets messed up, okay? So I recommend that you use something like Dropbox or something similar to that that keeps it in the Word format, that someone could click on the link and boom, it opens up for them and they can download it right away. We recommend you link to it from your LinkedIn profile, like I referenced before with Tim. Also to your Facebook, if you're in active job search mode and you're using Facebook in some way, shape, or form for your search, okay? You don't have to do it on Facebook. It's an alternative if you're networking through Facebook for your search as well. You can post it on YouTube if it's a video, right? You can send it in with your application. You may have to find a way to either email it in or like upload it as part of your resume, because I know sometimes when you're applying for a job online, they only give you a certain number of, documents you can upload. So try to send it in with your application if you can. Worst case, you could mail it in and mail it in with your resume. That can help you stand out. We suggest that you add it to your signature line in your work-specific job search email address, as well as your LinkedIn profile link. So what this means here is we suggest a couple of things, and then Sarah will do if you can open up the poll here in a second, that'd be great. With our clients, we want them to have a separate email address for their job search specifically. It helps them stay organized, but you also can't send like an employer like prettybutterfly23 at gmail.com, right? You need to have a professional sounding email. And that might sound silly, but we have had clients before. For example, one woman I just worked with last week, I think her email address was like ski nv and then 23 or something. I think that's because I didn't ask her, because she is a snow skier and she likes to ski in Nevada, let's say. I'm just making it up because I didn't ask her. That's not unprofessional, but every time I went to try to find her email to prepare for our session, I couldn't figure out who she was. Same with an employer. You need to have your name, full name if possible, as much as possible, so that they can identify who you are. So the email address needs to sound professional, but it needs to be like, this is who I am. Okay. And we do like it to be work specific and separate so that you can stay organized, like, okay, these are all the emails for my job search. Now, we suggest as well that you have a standard automatic signature line in your email. The other thing that drives me crazy, I'll be honest, is like if I have to call someone, a vendor or whoever else, and I can't remember where their phone number is, or it's not in my CRM. And the only place is, okay, I'm going to search my email, and they don't have a signature line. And I'm like, okay, I can't call you. It's harder. So you always want to have everyone, like as a default, a professional looking signature line that goes along with your email address. And you want to put your link to your one sheet in there, and you want to put a link to your LinkedIn profile as well. Okay. I also recommend having a photo. I think that's a good thing. It helps them connect with you again. That's going to be up to you. You can also put a link to your one sheet on your business card for when you're searching. Obviously, you can't do it if you have a job now and you're using your current business card for networking. We do recommend people have a separate business card for their job search and put your one sheet link on there. So Sarah, if you can do this third and last poll, that'd be great. Who has a job search specific?
Sorry, all. My hands are slipping here.
Oh, no worries.
Apologies. And where did...
I'm talking so much, I keep having to drink water. I'm like, blah.
Oh, it's fine. Okay, I'm so sorry. Our polls have disappeared. If anyone could simply tell us in the question area, if you would please type in if anyone does have a specific job search email address, let me know.
Good, yeah.
Because
And
I'm
then
assuming the majority of you do not. So would love to hear if anyone does have that. Okay, we have a couple folks who do have one.
Good.
And just to let everyone know, we're getting in some questions. We will be able to give you a copy of the slides afterwards, so that will be coming to you via email afterwards. Okay, so only 2 folks reached out saying that they do have a job search specific email address. Some have other files for their jobs where they categorize those conversations, but that's it.
Okay, everyone needs to go get one. Gmail free, easy peasy. Okay, and add that signature line. Thanks for letting us know, everyone. I wanted to just show you all this really quickly because then I want to move to Q&A here in just a second to make sure we've got some good time for that. But this is the example that I was explaining to you before about the man who is in telecommunications and was wanting to move into renewable energy. He created a short PowerPoint deck. And if you would like an example of this, or actually this example, I should say, feel free to email me. Happy to give that to you. But this was his PowerPoint to explain, okay, I do understand renewable energy and how to get into that. I've thought about it. I've done some research. I've talked to people. And this is what he would provide to people as his one sheet quick PowerPoint deck. Okay. Again, if you'd like this example, just email me and I will email you the presentation here as well from today. Okay, so let's just quickly review what we've talked about. These are the 3 steps. We talked about what the one sheet is, why it's important. We want to come up with action steps. So I want you to start thinking about that for me right now, everybody, and any questions that you might have. Okay, so as you're thinking about your action steps, I wanted to offer everyone a free career strategy session. Just email me at the email address at the bottom if you feel like you need to talk more about this or any other topic related to your career. As part of my partnership with Emory, we provide this, okay? So again, feel free to just email me. These are some testimonials from our clients and where some of our clients have landed positions, okay? Our satisfaction rate with people is 98%. It's fantastic. Happy to talk with you if needed. All right, so I want you all to get out your pen and paper, please, and write down one action step that you will take in the next week. It could be that I'm going to ask Hallie for the examples and I'm going to start thinking about, which one I want to do. It could be that I need to clarify, what my goal is and start kind of dumping some ideas on paper about what I could include, okay? And I want to pause before we get to the Q&A section. And I want to have you think about this quote. This is my favorite quote. I use it with all of my presentations, so some of you may have seen it before. The greatest risk in life is not taking one. I know that putting yourself out there can sometimes feel like a risk, and it can sometimes feel scary. I feel that way too. I totally get it. But without risk, everyone, right, there's no reward. And at the end of the day, you don't want to say to yourself, gosh, I should have done that. And had I done it, I might have gotten that interview. Okay. You don't want to have that sense of regret. So take the risk. Baby steps is okay with me. All right. So let's do the Q&A, Sarah, if we could.
Okay.
And
All
then
right.
I'm
Well,
just
thank
going
you.
to,
Oh, sorry. Go
yeah,
ahead.
no, go for it, Sarah.
Thank you to those of you who sent questions in advance and during the session, but we do have some time, so feel free to add some more in the question area on the GoToWebinar control panel. So first question, Hallie, how do you recommend condensing a diverse group of skills into a short 1 to 2 sentence, um, yeah, one to two sentences for your resume while also standing out? So you try and
Oh,
keep it brief but unique.
right. So for the resume specifically, like for your professional profile at the top, that's a great question. So what you need to do is you need to choose like action oriented, like very specific words. And if you feel like that's part of, what's hard for you, go to, what is it? It's synonym.com and use like their little dictionary online to come up with additional or different words that you can use. But in your summary, honestly, it's not supposed to be a perfectly grammatically correct like statement. Okay. So it's okay if it's, um, executive or marketing executive with 10 years of experience and blah, 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 blah. Like, you just need to like spell it out there, honestly, and lay it out in like 2 or 3 sentences in your professional profile, or that's how you would create it, I should say. Um, if it's diverse, like you were saying, I would try to group them according to like the first one might be about your leadership skills and, categorize them, if you will, into separate sentences. And here's the thing, too, is if your experience is really diverse and some of it, though, is irrelevant to the jobs that you're applying for, don't put it in there. Keep in mind, everyone, that your resume is not everything plus the kitchen sink, right? Or whatever that saying is. I think I always get it wrong. It's not that. It is supposed to be tailored and targeted and only have information that's going to be relevant to that job. So don't just plop everything on there thinking it's going to make you look better because you've got all this other experience too. If it's not relevant for the position, it's actually going to diffuse your message and make them think, oh, well, I thought she was this at first, but now I'm thinking she's this. Okay. So keep that in mind with the diverse experience as well. And Sarah, feel free to add if you've got anything else.
Okay. I agree that now it's just all about tailoring to the job. And you could use other things to stand out, maybe how you are designing your resume or utilizing all the many ways in which LinkedIn lets you get creative, or having a website, a resume website. So I think there are other ways in which you can display creativity and show other sides of yourself.
Perfect.
So
Yep.
somewhat on a similar note, we have someone here who has a wide variety of experiences and has changed jobs quite a bit over the years, and we're seeing this more and more. People are pivoting, and new jobs are popping up. So, how do you represent the story in the best light and not just look like someone who's all over the place?
Right. So that's a great question, too. So, one thing that you can do on your resume specifically is you can use a functional resume instead of a chronological resume. And a functional resume allows you to group your experience based on type. So, for example, using me, I would have coaching experience and I would have, owning my business, but then I would also have, just trying to think of the best way to explain it. I would have owning my business, but any coaching or management roles that I've had in the past, when I had employees. And then in a separate section and category, I might have like education or teaching experience, which is different from coaching when I taught at the University of Illinois, et cetera. So that's one way you can kind of group and categorize things. I will give you a heads up and sort of a warning about functional resumes. Some recruiters and employers are hesitant about them because they think you're trying to hide something. My personal opinion is that they are okay as long as they're well done. Okay. If you're trying to tell the story story of, your career path, especially if you kind of moved around a little bit, in my opinion, that goes a little bit more like in your cover letter versus your one sheet, okay? Because you can explain like your career progression there, because your one sheet should be more about kind of like selling yourself versus telling that story. So if that's, part of what I think that's what you're asking, part of what you're considering is if you need to kind of tie things together, so I moved to this place for this purpose and this reason, that would be better suited for your cover letter. Okay? And hopefully that answers. I think it does.
Okay. All right, great. That's wonderful. Um, so, how well does this work in the nonprofit space? And I believe this question means how would you adjust this advice for nonprofit professionals versus corporate professionals? Or is it the
Sure.
same?
You know what? I would say the same thing, but I would just make sure that you articulate and use like language that's going to resonate with nonprofits. So if you're coming from private industry, the business world, you don't want to go too heavy into like finance lingo or stuff like that. I'm not putting nonprofits down at all, but sometimes they are a little bit leery of, oh, you're going to come in and be too formal or, whatever it is. So I would just make sure that you use two things. You use the right language, okay, that's not as formal or not too business oriented that they might get turned off. And the second thing is it's more okay, I think, in some ways. Again, it depends on the nonprofit, but to talk about like what your values are and why you feel compelled and you want to work there. Not that other employers in private industry don't care about that, but a lot of times people go to work at a nonprofit because they've got their heart is drawing them to it for whatever reason, the cause that it is. Okay, so it's okay, and I think more helpful, I should say, to include something like that. Like, this is why I feel passionately about your cause. I would include that as well.
Okay. All right,
Good
great.
question. Yeah.
And so, how do you sell yourself effectively to employers if you've had an employment gap, even if it's brief, and maybe it was intentional, and you were using this time to research the switch from industries, which it sounds like many people here today are doing. They're going from one industry to another.
Mhm.
So, what's the best way to just address that head on?
I would address that in your cover letter as well and just explain, okay, I was taking the time to research the right industry, develop my network and understand what the right fit would be. So just explain it in the cover letter, that, for the past X amount of time, this is what I've been doing. In some cases, I know people might be like, gosh, then I'm calling it out and like waving a red flag. They're going to figure it out anyway, right? And my thing is get ahead of the message, right? The more you can control the message and control and prevent like some bad assumptions on their part, the better off you're going to be, right? So,
Mhm.
from my perspective, it would be better to say it up front and say, this is what I've been doing. This is the reasoning. I've taken this class, whatever it is. And now I'm really, really clear on this is the direction I want to head. And here's why, because I'm excited about blah, 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 blah. And these are the results I can achieve for your organization. That's how you want to put it. Good question.
So, what is your advice for those who are networking inside their companies and looking for stretch assignments or investigating other roles within the company? Would you
Yeah,
still
that's
hand
great.
someone a one sheet?
Yeah, I would. Like, this is why, I mean, because you could hand them your resume, right? But that might end up being kind of formal. And so the one sheet can, and maybe too formal, the one sheet can actually kind of take the place of it and say, like, here are my strengths. Here are the reasons why I want this, this project or assignment to work on. And here's why I think I'd be good for it, and what the results I would achieve. So, absolutely, this could be good. I would keep it short and sweet again. But that's something that, yeah, I've thought this through, Joe, whoever it is that you're talking to. And this is why I think, I could really be an asset. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to use it.
Okay. All right, great.
Good.
And a couple questions about cover letters. So,
Okay.
cover letter versus career one sheet. Is this career one sheet more generic and focused on an industry or role?
So cover letter and one sheet are two separate things, just to be clear. And yeah, the one sheet, well, they're supposed to be both of them, they're supposed to be focused on the role. So the difference though is your cover letter is you're writing in like first person and you're talking about, your strengths and all of that. And your one sheet is not really supposed to be a narrative necessarily. It's supposed to be more of a bulleted list. Like here are the top 5 projects or things I accomplished last year, and here were the results. See what I mean? So it's different. Like a cover letter is a letter written to someone, a narrative, and a one sheet is more of additional information to add to your resume.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. And then
Okay.
I've
And
got 1 more minute to do one more.
all right, perfect. So then let's switch over to we have a few questions here from recent graduates. So, what do you do? How do you best present experience when this is your first job you're going for?
How do you best present your experience when it's your first job?
Yes.
Okay.
So if those entry level jobs now
Yes.
say they really want 3 years of experience, which I think some employers are just writing that, but they don't expect it. So do you try and list out your coursework in a CV, or do you put it into a resume format? What's your recommendation?
Totally. I totally get that. That's so hard. I remember those days. So you do want to have still a resume format, like, and it can just be one page. So in your case, when it's, a new job for you, it can be just be one page and that's fine. But I definitely would list leadership positions that you held, any activities or volunteer work, and any classes or coursework that would be relevant and projects that, you worked on that would be relevant. When we work with MBA students, and they haven't been working for 2 years, we will put a listing of their coursework at the top. That's totally fine. Sure, having 3 to 5 years of work experience, of course, in a lot of ways that can be preferable. But if it is an entry level job, they're not necessarily expecting that. Like they would be more okay than you think with the coursework and the projects. So you want to lay it out just like you would a regular resume, as if these were jobs, but you just explain and say in there, okay, volunteer work, leadership positions, all of that.
Okay. All right. Well, Hallie, thank you so much for your time today. And again, we will send out a copy of this presentation deck, information on scheduling appointments with Hallie or other career coaches. And we have some networking events and other interesting discussions coming up in Atlanta and other cities. So stay tuned for those and let me know if you have any questions. Hallie, have a great afternoon. And thanks to everyone for taking time out of your day to join us.
Thanks for being here, everybody. Have a great one. Good luck.